to share the love. What do you think about that? I'm going to highlight the dangers of doing activities like that one. Of course, Donald Trump is also moving another battleship into the Middle East. Is the situation with Iran about to escalate? That's next on State of the Nation.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Yes, there will be quite a bit of sunshine for many of us tomorrow, but before that we have a cold and for many icy night to come. That's because the weather systems that have brought today's cloud and rain, they are shifting further southwards, allowing for clearer, colder air to come in from the north. So still cloudy with some outbreaks of rain for a little while yet across central southern parts of England and Wales, but even here it's turning dry, and then widely across the country there'll be a lot of dry and clear weather. With that cold air and those clear skies, temperatures are going to drop, just about holding up above freezing towards the south in some towns and cities, but most places falling a fair few degrees below. In fact, across parts of Scotland it could get into negative double figures. So a harsh frost for many of us, widespread icy conditions. There could be still some lying snow in places, and the ice is going to lead to some difficult driving conditions as well first thing tomorrow morning. The ice risk is across much of the country, really, just towards the south-southeast where temperatures hold up that little bit higher. Less of an ice risk here, but nonetheless there could still be some frost in prone spots as well. So a cold, frosty, icy start to the day tomorrow, but a bright one. Lots of sunshine on offer for most of us. Perhaps a bit of cloud lingering across some parts of East Anglia, but elsewhere a sunny morning before some high-level cloud sweeps its way in, turning the sunshine a bit milky from the west as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures are widely going to be lower than today, but I think many of us will take that for the sunny skies. Then, as we go later tomorrow and overnight into Sunday, a band of rain turning to snow across northern eastern parts pushes its way in. That then clears away towards the east through Sunday with further showery rain, which could be quite heavy, particularly across parts of the south as we go through the day, and that could cause some issues with the ground so very saturated. A bit of flooding is possible. More changeable weather to come as we go into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello and good evening. It's me, Alex Armstrong. This is State of the Nation tonight.
My grandchildren and I painted some cards, Valentine cards, at the weekend, which we are going to be presenting to the men in the camp at Crowborough.
A Green Party councillor, Anne Cross, has announced her own grandchildren painted Valentine's Day cards for the men housed at the Crowborough migrant camp. Also tonight.
You have to make a deal, otherwise it's going to be very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't want that to happen, but we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal.
President Trump is sending the world's largest aircraft carrier to the Middle East as tensions continue to heighten with Iran. And a migrant killer is set to be released after only serving a third of his sentence as Justice Secretary David Lammy comes under fire. Also,
Immediately, we're repealing the ridiculous endangerment finding and terminating all additional green emission standards imposed unnecessary.
He's on a roll, isn't he? President Trump has torn up the Obama era, finding that Washington regulating its carbon emissions is all now gone. Should Britain follow suit? And joining me on my panel this evening is Reform UK councillor Jamie McIver and journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. A huge hour to bring you this evening. Would you write a Valentine's Day card to an asylum seeker? We'll get stuck into that next. Thank you to everyone joining us on radio and, of course, to you watching at home. I want to ask you this. Should children and the public be encouraged to write Valentine's Day cards to illegal migrants? At an East Sussex County Council meeting this week, Green Party councillor Anne Cross proudly announced that she supervised her own grandchildren to paint Valentine's Day cards for the adult men housed at the Crowborough migrant camp. She encouraged others to share the love.
My grandchildren and I painted some cards, Valentine cards, at the weekend, which we are going to be presenting to the men in the camp at Crowborough as a welcome. And I urge us all across the county as representatives, as members of our local community, to stand with all those who want to share the love.
Share the love. Let's be clear about something. These are single males who have crossed the channel illegally, some of whom are from cultures where there is no legal age that a man can marry a child. And yet, some people think that encouraging children to send them Valentine's Day cards is a good idea. This type of behaviour isn't new, though, is it? Last year, some school children were encouraged to write cards to illegal migrants with words like, "You are welcome here." Those cards were often displayed in classrooms, and some were even sent to groups supporting illegal migrants, albeit anonymised. Well, why don't I just state the blindingly obvious and tell you why, in my opinion, this is an insane and dangerous idea. Telling a child to write a Valentine's card for a random adult man, especially a stranger, especially a foreigner, is flat out insanity. I think it trains children to lower their guard around the exact kind of people every school, every safety programme and every parent screams to never approach or engage with. It's what you're taught as a kid. It's 101, isn't it? Now, of course, not every illegal migrant is dangerous, but recent headlines should be enough of a warning. An Afghan asylum seeker who arrived by small boat in March 2025 was just found guilty of abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton, multiple counts of rape, sexual assault, and even filmed the attack. This isn't just about children, is it? It's about the safety of women too. Writing Valentine's Day cards to these men might be interpreted as some form of consent or even an invitation. You can imagine the court transcript now, can't you? Your Honour, my client received a Valentine's Day card from a 12-year-old girl, so he saw that was a form of invitation. It is complete insanity that anyone, anywhere, would think that sending cards like this should be encouraged by anybody, let alone tolerated. Joining me this evening to talk about this story is Reform UK councillor Jamie McIver and journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. Jamie, I'll start with you. I just can't get my head around why anyone thinks this is a good idea. And as I said, not all illegal migrants are dangerous, we know that. But there's enough headlines that should make people think twice about there being any excuse or any, form of invitation, as I put it, that might be used in court against the country. It's why many of them don't understand the laws of our land.
Well, I think that councillor should be absolutely ashamed of herself. I think those are outrageous comments. I think it's actually encouraging people to go near somewhere which could be very dangerous, which we know has been very dangerous. But it's all very well, isn't it, if it's not your granddaughter being sexually assaulted or raped, that's fine, isn't it? As long as it's not your grandchildren. This is, I think, a reckless thing for someone in elected office. As a councillor, I would never dream of saying something like that in the council chamber. And I think it's designed, Alex, this is what saddens me the most, it's designed to have an effect. These people know that what they're saying is wrong. They choose to do it because they like the uproar. They want to call everybody divisive. They want this debate to be happening because they think it advances their causes. In Crowborough, people are genuinely concerned for the safety of women and girls in particular. They are protesting peacefully, and I know what that's like being from Epping. And I think it is outrageous that a councillor thinks that is in any way suitable. And by the way, councillors on a council like East Sussex, like her, are responsible for safeguarding. Councillors are corporate parents to children in care. What a reckless thing to say when you have such significant office to uphold.
Yeah, Benjamin, it can set a dangerous precedent in the sense that if something happens and there was a Valentine's Day card sent, would there be some sort of feeling of guilt if I would feel guilty if I'd sent a Valentine's Day card to somebody and then it ended up that being used against me potentially?
No, I'm slightly jealous they're getting more Valentine's Day cards than I am.
I mean, you would be jealous of this type of programme, Benjamin.
But look, I think you need to question your moral compass because Christian values says you should love thy neighbour, and that is what this woman is doing. It's obviously not a romantic gesture. It is a showing affection and consideration to people that have fled from appalling circumstances, who are living in tumult by being in a hotel in that situation, and she's extending a hand of friendship. I think that is a very healthy way to raise your child, that you should be considerate and compassionate to other people's lives.
I think these might be images of a migrant protest. I was actually in Crowborough just a few weeks ago. This is Crowborough here, actually, just to confirm now. I recognise that pub on the corner there. And people are furious. People there are furious. And there were people from all walks of life, middle class, upper class, lower class, children, adults. One of the children there told me that her way of life is going to be destroyed because she won't be able to, she's worried about her friends walking home through the woods and things like that. And I just feel like I can sympathise with your perspective, Benjamin, but I don't think it's actually morally right for anyone to be encouraging this kind of behaviour, given that we do know that men from specific backgrounds have a disproportionately more likely to commit crimes like this. I just feel like it's a bad idea.
Well, first of all, love thy neighbour is a wonderful thing at the heart of Christian ethos, but there is a very big difference between love thy neighbour and be kind to others, and then use something like Valentine's Day, which is a romantic, often quite sexualised occasion for grown-ups.
Come on, my grandmother would give me a Valentine's Day card. I think it's just affection.
Encouraging children to do that, knowing that, and I will have to pull you up, the idea that these people are, fleeing devastation and are desperate people. No, a lot of these people are economic migrants that have paid thousands and thousands of pounds to smugglers to enter the United Kingdom. They have broken the law illegally. They are criminals and should be treated as such. You do not encourage your grandchildren to write Valentine's Day cards to criminals. But more importantly, the point Alex makes, people are so sick and tired of this. I know from the Epping protests, people that have never protested before in their life, not like the wokey-pokey lefty people that go to every single Palestine march possible. This is people that have never, ever protested before, and they are concerned for the safety of their children and grandchildren. And it's an insult that an elected representative would give such a disregard to the obvious safety issues. And we know from the statistics that many of these men are going on to commit some of the most awful crimes.
Well, look, first of all, the question of whether and where these people should be housed is separate to showing compassion to the individuals that find themselves there. And I think there is a rank hypocrisy from right-wingers like you who say that you should get these people to integrate, that they should learn about British values, that they should become part of the community if they wish to live here. And yet when someone reaches out to do that in a considerate, compassionate way, you say that that is a bad thing. I think this is a perfectly healthy way to behave, and it is trying to encourage the connections and the relationships.
What planet are you living on, Benjamin? What planet are you living on? Integration is one thing. Yes, assimilation is one thing. But councillors, members of the public, children writing heart-shaped, potentially, I'm not saying they have been, but if there's alleged heart-shaped cards or Valentine's Day, or I don't want to say something and get myself into trouble in case they are written in the context of that video of Valentine's Day, right? That was the video we're talking about. This Green Party councillor has said she's doing that and she's encouraging her grandchildren to do it, right? So I'm going off that evidence, OK? That, to me, is incentivising someone to go. And if people who can't read English, some of these people, by the way, they can't read English.
Well, isn't
they
that
can't
a good
understand.
thing, then? This is a way for them to learn the language.
Benjamin, you can
That's a great
send someone a written letter, like we used to, you know, back in the day we used to write pen pals abroad, things like that. You can do that for kids your age. I don't think encouraging children who we teach from a young age to avoid strangers on the streets, writing them cards that might be love hearts on them in letters that they could misconstrue as potentially affectionate.
I mean, I imagine, of course, we haven't seen what's been written in these, but I imagine it's a sort of welcome to the community, a reach of friendship.
But why then Valentine's Day, Benjamin? Why do it on a day of love, a day of showing affection?
Because love comes in all sorts of forms, and showing love to these people will probably have a healthier outcome than making them feel threatened and isolated.
If we're going to be showing love to anybody, it should be veterans. It should be British people that are really struggling at the moment just to put food on the table. If we're going to show love to anybody, it should, the least type of people we should be trying to show love and affection to are people who have entered the country illegally, many of whom are statistically proven to go on to commit horrific offences against our women and girls. The last place a councillor should be encouraging young children to go and deliver Valentine's Day cards is an illegal migrant hotel.
Oh, you want me to respond? Sorry?
Go ahead. Go.
Well, look, I think that this is a compassionate way to behave. And also, what I really dislike about this is the way in which you try to dehumanise these people. It may be the case, of course, it would be irrational to say not, that some of these people are motivated by economic means. But they've also been through a horrendous ordeal coming across the channel.
How do you know that?
We know that 80% of them are accepted, they get refugee status, and so that says that they have a legitimate claim to be here. They've mainly come from countries like Libya, Sudan, Afghanistan, places that I've been to and are war-torn. And I think that, you know, to dehumanise these people is a dangerous route for us to go down. It is not the way you should be educating young people. I think this woman is being, I don't know whether she's a mother or a grandmother, I think she's a grandmother. I think raising her family in this way so that her kids show compassion to those that are fleeing hard times is a decent way to behave, a compassionate way to behave.
What are the hard times in France?
And I think, of course, they haven't come from France. They've come from places like Sudan and Afghanistan.
They've come from Europe.
No, they've gone through France. That's not where they've come from. And she is raising her family to care about people that have a worse life.
They have left the shores of France and they have come to the shores of Britain. Origin of destination.
And we know that
France.
8 out of 10 of them, if not more of them from countries like Sudan, will get refugee status and therefore they will be legal. And so is it not better to try and integrate them to the community?
Well, I'll put this to you first, Jamie. Christine here on your say says integration when they are legal, detention until they are illegal or deported. Do we need to integrate people that we should be deporting?
No, people that are being deported need to just be arrested, detained and deported. That's it. We don't want them here. They're illegal. They're breaking into the country. They are breaking the law. They are cheating the system. We do have a process whereby people can claim asylum, and those people that are successful, of course we should integrate them. Some of them will go on to do nice things for our country. But the country is full. And people
how
have
does
enough
someone
of
come
this.
here legally from a place like Sudan? Because they're never going to get a visa to be able to board the flight. So how do they get here to claim
asylum in the first safe country they get to? That's what they should be doing. They should not be coming to Britain.
But they would also be illegal in those countries because they've probably got a boat from Africa to Italy or to Spain.
That's not our problem.
I can't wrap my head around why any adult man needs a Valentine's Day card
from a child.
From a child or from anybody. Quite frankly, you know, Jamie, I think a lot of grown men don't really care about Valentine's Day. So this is, to me, an overtly political way of taking Valentine's Day, which is about love and showing affection to people close to you, or about surprising. So, you know, when you're at school, people would write, oh, you know, I fancy you, and it was be an anonymous card. That's what it was really all about, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry if you didn't, Benjamin, no offence. Of course, I hope none taken. But that's the point of Valentine's Day. It's a school kid's idea of sending an anonymous note to somebody going, oh, I love you. It's like a secret crush. That's when I think about Valentine's Day, that's a lot of the way I interpret this. That, in this situation, encouraging children to do that for adult men is wrong in any circumstances, isn't it? Even if they're white British men, it's weird and wrong.
Well, I think you know, the truth is that there are lots of people that share Valentine's notes in an unromantic way. For example, you know, it's not so unusual that a family member might send them to their...
No family member's ever sent me a Valentine's Day card. I'll tell you what, I sent it.
Family members love one another.
But you know...
Not in that way, Jamie.
Yeah, I don't know what they do in Epping, but it's a form of love and compassion. And I think, you know, I'm sure there is nothing sexual or romantic about the intention of this councillor. It's about sharing that attitude.
I get that,
and I think that's
what Valentine's Day is all about. It's all about, you know, love and sharing that moment with someone you love. And I just think this is all a bit weird, Jamie.
It's worse than weird. I think it's worrying. I think it's scary that this councillor is responsible for safeguarding as a corporate parent to many children in the Sussex area. I think it's a terrible misjudgment at best. I think at worst it's actually a very concerning safeguarding issue, actually.
OK, well, listen, the Green Party councillor told GB News this. Making cards to welcome people seeking asylum is a common activity for local people, school children and refugee charities. There is no evidence that children or women are at higher risk from people seeking asylum than other sections of our society. All right, well, coming up, the United States is sending the world's largest aircraft carrier to the Middle East as tensions continue to heighten with Iran. This is State of the Nation, only on GB News, digital and radio.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I'm doing this for the blue light personnel. And
I'm just saying that's the police. That is all military personnel, fire and rescue,
nurses,
prison wardens, you know,
correct.
so
Correct.
you're doing very well there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think they deserve. And in a moment where we have a very difficult economic climate, you know, I think that is the best thing I could do. And it's not for one day, it's for the rest of my working life.
So, but they have, is there a free day today? Or so what's happening today specifically?
Today, there is a lunch for hundreds of service personnel in Minori, in Hatch End, and it's free meals for all of them.
That's lovely.
as a sign of gratitude.
And then going forward, it's a 15% discount, isn't it?
That's correct.
Put it in context for people who just sort of, to give a bit of history about who you are and who you've worked with and whatever. You began, was it the Savoy Hotel in London?
I started at the Savoy.
Did you rub shoulders with anybody famous there?
Oh, a lot. Charlie Chaplin, Sophia Loren, Anthony Quinn. I could go on and on and on. But my very favourite was Charlie Chaplin. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That must have mean he's a world icon, really. I mean, to have met him and...
It's not met them. I built up an amazing relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do? Were you a restaurant owner there, or were you working as a chef there?
No, it's funny. I was a night luggage porter.
Oh, really?
And it was my choice to be a night...
So you weren't a chef?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. The United States is sending the world's largest aircraft carrier to the Middle East as tensions continue to heighten with Iran. The USSR Gerald R. Ford is set to sail from the Caribbean on its way to the Persian Gulf as America is locked into negotiations over a nuclear deal with the Islamic Republic. This follows the USS Abraham Lincoln being sent to the Middle East in response to the brutal crackdown on protesters in Iran. President Trump spoke about this yesterday.
We have to make a deal, otherwise it's going to be very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't want that to happen, but we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal.
I wonder what that means. So what implications does this latest move have for relations between the United States and Iran and, really, for the rest of the world? With me now to discuss this is former ambassador, British ambassador to Iran, Yemen, Qatar and Libya, Nicholas Hopton. Nicholas, thank you ever so much for joining me this evening. Quite a serious intervention here from Donald Trump, sending the world's largest aircraft carrier to the region. First of all, what can we gather from this? Is just this more political pressure to put onto Iran, or should we brace ourselves to the outbreak of war in the Middle East?
I think this is essentially very much from the Donald Trump playbook. We've seen him approach negotiations and attempts to force his opponent's hands in this way in the past. You saw it recently in Venezuela. And I think what the President of the United States is doing is ramping up the pressure on the Islamic Republic leaders in Tehran. This latest aircraft carrier just increases that military pressure. And recently, of course, you've seen further pressure through sanctions. So I'm not sure this is changes anything particularly, but it certainly increases the pressure on the leaders in Iran to take the negotiations that are ongoing in Oman, take them very seriously. And the President of the United States will be hoping that he will force their hands so that they accept something which they might not have been previously willing to accept, for instance, before last June when negotiations were also going on before the Israeli strikes on Tehran.
Nicholas, the United Kingdom, I always want to bring it back here to the UK so people listening and watching can understand how this might impact them. If there were to be any military escalation, should we expect the United Kingdom to be involved in that?
I don't think we would necessarily expect the UK to be directly involved in any strikes on Iran, which of course remain possible in this period. We're in a period of intense diplomacy, but equally there is a huge risk of miscalculation, and the President of the United States may also decide that military strikes will, in a very limited way, might just focus minds in Tehran, as I described before. So where would the UK fit into this? I think, as in the past, being the United States' closest ally, including in security issues, we would be shoulder to shoulder with them, but not necessarily participating in a military action. The policy of the British government, of British governments, regardless of party leadership, have always been very much in favour of a better deal for the Iranian people, which doesn't necessarily mean regime change, but it certainly means achieving a situation where the Iranian authorities do not massacre their civilian population for protesting, allow them to have the rights that they have in their constitution, which are abused by the authorities in Iran, and create a better future for the Iranian people. So I think the British government will probably continue with that approach. And while not directly participating, I would imagine, certainly not initially, would support the US in other ways to facilitate the approach the United States is taking towards negotiating a deal.
Indeed. Nicholas Hopton, former British ambassador to Iran, Yemen, Qatar and Libya. Thank you very much for joining me to give us your views on that story. Really appreciate it. Let me bring it into my panel here. Benjamin, one thing that winds me up about this is we saw, and I know you're not one of these people, but I would like your view on it. We've seen over the weekends Palestine protesters marching across London and other parts of the country. There have been massacres of people killed, slaughtered in Iran. Where is the support for those people? Are the left just very selective as to who they back and who they don't?
Well, the hard left has a weak point for Islamism and Islamic extremism, and they can't recognise that when they say they don't want a king, that's exactly the sort of dictatorship that Iranians live under, that is monstrous and that kills innocent people on a scale even worse than the war in Gaza, and yet they don't go out and protest about it, which I think is a moral failing. I think that Donald Trump has let the people of Iran down at the moment because he gave them a false hope when he said that he would do whatever it takes a couple of weeks ago and then didn't send in any action. It was quite likely that's because other states in the region said that they didn't want that escalation at the time. But ultimately, the people of Iran went out on the streets with the hope that someone was coming in to save them, and it hasn't happened. So I think that's a moral failing. But hopefully Iran is weakened. I mean, I spent 5 days in an underground bomb shelter as Iranian missiles were raining down on Tel Aviv in July of last year during the 12-day war, and Israel managed to take out lots of Iran's nuclear capabilities. So let's hope that if there is a plan, Iran is already weak and that it will be possible to take out this evil regime.
Yeah, Jamie, British people have for a very long time been fed up with war. They don't want more foreign wars. They want Britain to focus on itself. We're in enough crisis as it is, let's face it. Do you think that we should intervene in these sorts of cases? We should back up America if it were to take military action here. Do you think we have a moral duty to do so?
Well, the problem is now, because of immigration in many parts of our country, every time there is an issue, very much a foreign affairs issue, actually not really impacting Britain much at all. You see it come to the streets of London, you see it come to the streets of Manchester, Birmingham, Bradford. So we do have a problem in this country where I think the British people are just exhausted with everybody going to protest about foreign issues. We've got our own problems, as you rightly say, here at home. I think Donald Trump is a very intelligence-led president when it comes to military action. I think he's very precise. I think he's very well timed. I think Donald Trump has got a plan, and no one will know that plan until it's done. What's sad is I think relations between the United Kingdom and the United States have broken down, and I wouldn't be surprised if even our own Prime Minister isn't aware of what Donald Trump's plans are. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Prime Minister finds out probably at the same time as GBNews viewers. And I think that's a very damning indictment on this government, actually.
Indeed. And briefly, Benjamin, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard is still not a prescribed terrorist group. What is the government doing, dragging its feet, when the European Union, which is a much bigger beast, has been able to do this much quicker than us?
Well, it should be. I've written a lot about this, and I think the argument was that the US wanted the UK to not prescribe it because it gave a channel of communication. But I think We're way past that level, and I've reported on assassination attempts by IRGC agents, the Revolutionary Guard, on British soil, and that is an attack worse even than what Russia has carried out, and yet the British state has been weak against the threat.
Totally agree on that point, Benjamin. Listen, coming up, a migrant who killed 3 people through dangerous driving is set to be released, only serving a third of his sentence. That's as Justice Secretary David Lammy is coming under fire again. Can that man come under any more fire, frankly? This is State of the Nation, only on GB News TV and radio. See you shortly.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Having seen so much stormy weather across parts of Western Europe recently, finally a change is on the way. It's still windy this weekend in Spain, Portugal and across much of Italy. Spells of rain moving in here, reaching eventually parts of Greece and Croatia. But it is looking drier and brighter for much of Spain and Portugal despite that strong wind. And that steady improvement continues into next week. Still breezy with showers around, but not as stormy as it has been.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Yes, there will be quite a bit of sunshine for many of us tomorrow, but before that we have a cold and for many icy night to come. That's because the weather systems that have brought today's cloud and rain, they are shifting further southwards, allowing for clearer, colder air to come in from the north. So still cloudy with some outbreaks of rain for a little while yet across central southern parts of England and Wales, but even here it's turning dry, and then widely across the country there'll be a lot of dry and clear weather. With that cold air and those clear skies, temperatures are going to drop, just about holding up above freezing towards the south in some towns and cities, but most places falling a fair few degrees below. In fact, across parts of Scotland it could get into negative double figures. So a harsh frost for many of us, widespread icy conditions. There could be still some lying snow in places, and the ice is going to lead to some difficult driving conditions as well first thing tomorrow morning. The ice risk is across much of the country, really, just towards the south-southeast where temperatures hold up that little bit higher. Less of an ice risk here, but nonetheless there could still be some frost in prone spots as well. So a cold, frosty, icy start to the day tomorrow, but a bright one. Lots of sunshine on offer for most of us. Perhaps a bit of cloud lingering across some parts of East Anglia, but elsewhere a sunny morning before some high-level cloud sweeps its way in, turning the sunshine a bit milky from the west as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures are widely going to be lower than today, but I think many of us will take that for the sunny skies. Then, as we go later tomorrow and overnight into Sunday, a band of rain turning to snow across northern eastern parts pushes its way in. That then clears away towards the east through Sunday with further showery rain, which could be quite heavy, particularly across parts of the south as we go through the day, and that could cause some issues with the ground so very saturated. A bit of flooding is possible. More changeable weather to come as we go into next week.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Alex Armstrong. Well, a migrant who killed 3 members of the same family while driving high on multiple drugs is set to be released early from prison. Aurelius, I cannot pronounce that last name, Chelvetius, I believe, pleaded guilty to causing death by dangerous driving and was sentenced in 2023 to 10.5 years behind bars. However, under a new early release scheme designed to ease pressure on overcrowded prisons, he's now due to be freed after serving less than 3 years of that sentence before, of course, being deported to Lithuania. Summer Mace, the surviving daughter of the Carter family, says the decision feels like a get-out-of-jail-free card and is urging the government to reconsider the policy. So should Justice Secretary David Lammy intervene to block or review certain early releases? OK, with me now to discuss this is Managing Director of PCD Solicitors, Marcus Johnson. Marcus, thank you so much for joining me. Of course, you heard the daughter of the 3 family members killed by this man who was dangerous driving and, of course, is now going to be released early from prison. Should the Justice Secretary intervene in these cases? It does feel like a slap in the face to that surviving daughter, does it not?
It does, absolutely, Alex. But I'm afraid it's a problem, a massive problem within our criminal justice system and the prison system. If he was going to intervene in this particular case, then he would have to intervene in all the other cases. It is really a strange situation we have, the way our prison system is run and the way sentences are calculated. It's extremely difficult for anybody to understand and get the head around how these sentences actually work out. It just makes a mockery of the whole system. I was looking at this case today and just trying to figure out the actual statistics, the figures on this and the dates, and it's just bewildering. I can run through them with you briefly if you'd like me to.
Please do.
Well, he starts off with a 10.5-year sentence, as you've mentioned. We now have this strange system where almost all prisoners are subject to release at 50% of the term. That recently, 2024, has been reduced to 40% of the term. So people may find that strange that somebody's given a prison sentence, but they would only ever serve 40% of it anyway. We then take off from that any time spent on remand. So while somebody's waiting for their court case to come to trial, if they spend a year or 2 years on remand, then that comes off the prison term that they receive ultimately anyway. Now, as a remand prisoner, you're subject to additional privileges because you're not a convicted prisoner. So it's an easy option for many people who know how to play the system. But
indeed.
The crux of this is that we now have this early removal scheme for foreign nationals. And this there's no question about it, illustrates the government's priority of removing foreign nationals from the prison estate rather than punishing them. There's no doubt about that. And what that entitles them is up to 4 years off their sentence from the earlier release date. So you already take off the release time, 40%, they serve 40% of it, and then they're eligible for up to 4 years off that, providing they serve at least 30%. So if you follow those figures through in this particular case, 10 years, 6 months in prison, normally that would give a release date of after 4 years, 2 months approximately. He's then subject to a further 4 years off that, subject to serving at 30%. And if you work all that through, it brings his prison term down to 37.8 months, just over 3 years in prison. So we've gone from somebody who, in effect, through driving, through drugs, through drink, through speeding, kills 3 members of a family, gets sentenced to 10.5 years, and is then released for removal after 3 years. It's truly shocking.
This is the difficulty, Marcus, that I have with this issue, is there are certain times I feel that we should just get these migrants out of our country, people who don't belong here in Britain, and not burden the taxpayer with them being in prison here. On the other hand, I feel like some justice needs to be served. Particularly when, in this case, 3 members of a family have died to someone being so reckless in our country. It's very, very difficult, and I really struggle with that moral pulling from one side to the other. But, of course, to be fair to the government, people like me have called for this for a very long time, deport foreign nationals out of the country if they commit a crime here. Is there a better balance to be found? Can we do some deals with some of these countries to make sure that these foreign nationals who have committed offences and are convicted serve a term or a longer term, perhaps, in the country that they go back to?
Well, that's a possibility, but there's no guarantee that they would be imprisoned if they were sent back home. Different countries have different regimes, and it would be very difficult to monitor what was happening there. I think the major problem we are facing, and I've said this for some time now, is that the UK is fast becoming the criminals' country of choice. And the reason I say that is because it's relatively easy to commit crime in the UK. There's little chance of being caught. If caught, there's little chance of being prosecuted. For somebody who's prosecuted, there's little chance of being convicted. If they are convicted, little chance of going to prison. And if they are eventually sent to prison, well, they're released early anyway. I mean, it just is a laughable situation that we find ourselves in. We have a prison estate which is just crumbling. We have a criminal justice system that's in disarray. The whole thing is just falling apart, Alex.
It certainly is. Marcus Johnston, Director of Peace City Solicitors. Thank you, Managing Director, should I say. Thank you very much for joining me this evening and giving us your views on this. Let me bring my panel in. Benjamin, this is a disaster. It's a disaster. We can't get any of this right. And Marcus, there's a damning indictment on our system here. And I appreciate you're going to say, the Tories are 4 years, the 14 years, blah, blah, blah. That's what you're going to say. I know I can read it out before you. I'll do your job, actually. Actually, don't go to Benjamin. I'll just do it for him. The Tories did 14 years of this, and it's their fault. But how much time does the Justice Secretary need to actually get on and do his job properly?
Well, I mean, it is true that the first problem that they had when they came in was that there were very few prison places available. And so if you didn't commute the sentences of some people, then people currently going through the courts wouldn't have places to go in prison, which would cause mass disorder potentially. So that was a very dangerous, very big risk. The question here is that on the one hand, I mean, look, there's no doubt from my mind that 3 years is, a year per person killed is nothing like acceptable. But on the other hand, deporting them after 3.5 years will save the British taxpayer hundreds of thousands of pounds. When we have so few places in our prisons, would it not make sense to make the priority to deport foreign criminals? But the problem is that are you then evading justice? Because if there's no guarantee that the other country will imprison them there, and I suppose in many senses, why would they? It would cost them a fortune. Then is that really a fair way to do things? But the flip side of that is that if there are British citizens in prisons abroad and we try to have an agreement, why on earth would we take them here to put them in our prisons when we have no space? I doubt that's a government policy. And so that's the problem.
Jamie, there's people locked up in prisons for hurty words, I would say, in some cases. We've seen, of course, here in the UK. That would at least free up a few prison cells, perhaps, but there is a difficult moral decision here. I struggle with this topic too, because I want justice to be served. This poor surviving daughter of this family wants justice. She's not going to get that justice now, in my opinion.
Well, the problem is almost the sentence he's going to serve is almost as long as some of the people that do put hurty things on Facebook and then delete them within half an hour. But I think the problem here, Alex, we have enough problem people in our own country. At a wholesale rate, we have got immigration to this country in all different forms, and it is putting such a strain on every single service of the government, whether that's school places, GP appointments, and of course our prison service. There are, I think, something like 10,000 foreign national offenders in our prisons. I'd like to see them all deported. But of course, you make the point about justice. This is why reform's policy about having Nightingale prisons to actually deal with the overload and use the British Army veterans who are so desperate to serve their country in a different way and engage that group of people to actually have discipline in our prisons. Yeah. We see videos of these people in prison with TikToks and everything. It's gone mad. I think what that lawyer just said completely just sums up how broken this country is. And anyone like the Tories who broke our country to turn around and say we're not broken when you've just had the most damning indictment of justice. But my heart breaks for that family because they must feel awful that just 1 year per person. But no one should be released from prison early anyway. That in itself is an assault on justice.
I can't tell you how angry and frustrated I would be, and I feel so deeply for that poor woman who's the surviving member. The world just feels so... this country just feels like it's bankrupt from top to bottom, does it? Particularly on justice, the one thing that we really need.
If you're saying, not wrongly, you're saying that the Tories failed and broke the system, why did you take the Home Secretary responsible for it into your party?
Well, I don't believe that it was Suella Braverman's fault that the justice system over decades. By the way, the Home Secretary is not responsible for courts and prisons. I'm worth pointing that out. She was Attorney General, then Home Secretary.
But she wasn't deporting these people.
But the point really that Alex makes is very, very right. We're morally bankrupt. British people second, everyone else first.
OK, listen, coming up next, President Trump has torn up the landmark ruling that greenhouse gases endanger public health. Should Britain now follow suit? This is State of the Nation, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Thank you all for joining us, of course, viewers here and those of you listening on radio. Last night, President Trump dropped another green bombshell.
Immediately, we are repealing the ridiculous endangerment finding and terminating all additional green emission standards imposed unnecessarily.
Right, well, that was President Trump announcing the scrapping of a key Obama-era finding that has informed government policy on curbing greenhouse gases. The 2009 finding stated that greenhouse gases were a threat to public health. But the president called his decision to roll back the guidance the largest deregulation in American history, claiming it will now make cars more affordable for United States citizens. So, with acute costs of living pressures on this side of the pond, is this Trump rollback of green policies a lesson for net zero's biggest fan, our Secretary of State, Ed Miliband. Well, joining me to talk about this, of course, is my panel. I've got Reform UK councillor here, Jamie McIver, and journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. Jamie, I'll start with you because, of course, Reform are going big on rolling back this net zero agenda. I was obviously working with Patrick here in London last night while he was in Durham. He was speaking to people up north where there's a lot of deindustrialisation happening. A lot of them point to net zero being the key issue. What do you think?
Well, of course, I mean, talk about is it a risk to health, you know, and should we use this green agenda to improve public health? I can think of one very damaging thing to people's health, and that's their mental health when they can't earn any money because we've deindustrialised the country, or with an obsession with net zero, which I think, frankly, is for North London champagne socialists that want to feel good about each other, when actually the reality of the harm that is doing in real places like Durham, in places where Reform are doing exceptionally well, because we actually listen to real people, to working people, unlike this current Labour government. But, you know, net zero, I think, is costing this country a fortune, and not just financially. Just out in the countryside, in places like Ongar, where I'm a councillor, one of our parishes could soon be 8% covered in solar panels. Now, if that was a nationwide matter, you'd be looking at the whole county of Yorkshire being covered in solar panels. It is blighting the countryside. You've got awful eyesores in wind turbines that don't even work when it's too windy, and the idea that it's brought our energy bills down is for the birds. We need to scrap all net zero.
Benjamin? Well, I mean, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, you know, if you don't tackle climate change, then it won't matter how cheap the cars are, because you'll be needing boats because we'll all be underwater.
How will we be the ones to tackle climate change? We produce less than 1% of global emissions.
Well, first of all, we should take responsibility for our own contribution, and we should also have the moral and political leadership, which clearly Britain can offer. We can't say to other countries like China that they should behave in a certain way if we don't behave in that way ourselves.
Do you think they care what we think? Because I seen the Prime Minister out in China a few weeks ago where he sort of literally moved around the building. He came away with no trade deal, nothing worth talking about. I don't think they care what we think about whether we lecture them or not.
First of all, China has a net zero target, I think, of 2060, and I was in China a couple of months ago. It's almost all electric vehicles. They are cleaning
Powered
up...
by the multiple coal plants they keep putting up.
They are cleaning up their system at a rapid rate. And the truth is that it doesn't make sense to oppose things like solar panels or wind power. One of the major problems we have in our economy is that due to our reliance on the global economy, and in this case Russia, we have seen a massive rise in our energy costs. But if we were producing that for ourselves, then you would not have that vulnerability. So it both is good for the environment and for our long-term future.
How many solar panels are manufactured in Britain? How many wind turbines are manufactured in Britain? We're importing it from China. We're just going to go from being reliant on Russia to reliant on
But that is easily
China,
fixed.
and it's
Hang on.
not easily fixed at all.
Where you manufacture the items can be resolved. That isn't an argument against the fact that we should have renewable energy.
We're deindustrialising the country because no one will start a factory or a business here because of net zero.
And let me just put this to you, Benjamin. You've been a bit of a new Labour fan here and there, is that right? Would I be fair?
As Blairite as they get.
Fantastic. Well, your idol, Tony Blair, came out today in the front page of The Telegraph as a piece where he says, drill, baby, drill, open up the North Sea again. What do you say to that? Is he wrong?
I've actually always said that I think it's kind of pointless to not drill in the North Sea.
This is such a contradiction.
It's not, because the rest of the world is still drilling, and I think that the economy is in a position where we need the money. But what that shouldn't mean, and also, by the way, the effect wouldn't be that great. You'd get the income, which is why I agree with it, but it wouldn't lower petrol prices, for example, because it's based on a global price, not a domestic one. So you don't get that direct benefit. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be having the renewable energy sources, which would mean that we can be self-reliant as a country. Isn't that what you believe?
Is Tony Blair right, Jamie? Is Tony Blair right on this issue?
Why should the British people have to have the eyesore of wind turbines that when it's too windy don't actually work?
Get over it.
They are. They're awful.
I tell you what,
why
Jamie,
should we have that when we've got our own reserves that we should be using, which would create
We've got our own wind, we've got our own solar, we should make the most of it. I think people would rather be able to run their business and afford to heat their home comfortably during the winter more
Labour
bothered
are
about
taking
that
away the winter fuel payment. I think you should sit that one out.
Bothered about wind turbines. You know, there is not a problem with how ugly wind turbines are. Most people do not have the luxury of that being their central care. What they want is to be able to afford afford the energy costs, renewable energy means that we would be secure and have lower prices.
No, because when it's
I
too
can't
windy,
believe
they
you
don't
always talk
turn.
about sovereignty and Britain being self-reliant.
Yes.
And yet when it's in this context, you just want to oppose it.
No.
Because some American that makes billions from selling things to oil magnates like Donald Trump wants
because we should drill our own reserves. That's how you become sovereign. That's how you take advantage of your natural resources. The British Empire was built on that desire to have loads of resources and make us a wealthy
You don't
nation.
think wind, solar and water energy is not a natural resource?
Gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there. Frank says there's enough hot air from Benjamin to run a turbine and the power of the entire city, Benjamin. So
I'm
maybe we'll
actually
just
running all the lights.
Benjamin's keeping the lights on here. Listen, Jamie, thank you so much. Benjamin, thank you so much. And thank you to all listening and watching at home. I'll be back tomorrow for Alex Armstrong Tonight and, of course, the Saturday 5. Come and tune in. But up next, it's Patrick Christie's Tonight. Patrick, looking forward to your show. What's coming up?
Yes, I'm here with my wonderful live studio audience. How are we tonight? Good? Brilliant. Well, I am very much up for it tonight, I must say. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We've got loads on. Jim Ratcliffe apologised. Why did he apologise? He didn't need to apologise. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. Also, Palestine Action now, despite a government with a massive mandate deciding that they are a terrorist organisation. All it takes is just a couple of judges to go, no, they're not a terrorist organisation, and they can crack on. So that's a problem for us now. Mandelson's back in the news, so is Prince Andrew as well. And has every man in this room remembered Valentine's Day tomorrow? Yeah, a couple of shifty-looking people there, I'll be honest with you. Well, it turns out that a Green Party councillor has got their grandchildren to write a Valentine's Day card for illegal migrants. Weird, isn't it? Anyway, all that and more. See you in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Yes, there will be quite a bit of sunshine for many of us tomorrow, but before that we have a cold and for many icy night to come. That's because the weather systems that have brought today's cloud and rain, they are shifting further southwards, allowing for clearer, colder air to come in from the north. So still cloudy with some outbreaks of rain for a little while yet across central southern parts of England and Wales, but even here it's turning dry, and then widely across the country there'll be a lot of dry and clear weather. With that cold air and those clear skies, temperatures are going to drop, just about holding up above freezing towards the south in some towns and cities, but most places falling a fair few degrees below. In fact, across parts of Scotland it could get into negative double figures. So a harsh frost for many of us, widespread icy conditions. There could be still some lying snow in places, and the ice is going to lead to some difficult driving conditions as well first thing tomorrow morning. The ice risk is across much of the country, really, just towards the south-southeast where temperatures hold up that little bit higher. Less of an ice risk here, but nonetheless there could still be some frost in prone spots as well. So a cold, frosty, icy start to the day tomorrow, but a bright one. Lots of sunshine on offer for most of us. Perhaps a bit of cloud lingering across some parts of East Anglia, but elsewhere a sunny morning before some high-level cloud sweeps its way in, turning the sunshine a bit milky from the west as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures are widely going to be lower than today, but I think many of us will take that for the sunny skies. Then, as we go later tomorrow and overnight into Sunday, a band of rain turning to snow across northern eastern parts pushes its way in. That then clears away towards the east through Sunday with further showery rain, which could be quite heavy, particularly across parts of the south as we go through the day, and that could cause some issues with the ground so very saturated. A bit of flooding is possible. More changeable weather to come as we go into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate.